UFC 300. My theory is you cannot be considered the greatest of all time if you have PED infractions, and if you don't fight the top guys. And so I believe George St. Pierre, and I know you love George, is the greatest of all time. As a result, he fought everyone, and when he couldn't fight, he dropped the belt right away. Agree or disagree?
GSP is my greatest of all time. It goes without saying. Like, he has done everything. Like you say, two division champion. Also relinquished both of his losses. Zero PED stuff. And I think I'm not getting at John here. I'm getting at anyone who's failed a PED test. If you're so this is my view on PEDs personally. So I answered it. I was like, "What's wrong? What's up?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Dana's just announced that you're the champion." I was like, "What? No way." Anyway, we had a little chat. Put the phone down. Hunter Campbell called me, literally as I put the phone down. Now, as he called it, all I could hear was the press conference like going on in the background, like with Dana. And I thought, originally, that he'd like pocket dialed me by accident because I was like, "Hello?" Like, it was loud. It was like he was in the same room as Dana. And he just said, "Look, just letting you know, we've announced that you're the champion. Congratulations. We'll talk more next week. Bye."
That was it.
Like, whatever. I'm like done with that now, and I'm ready to move on. To be honest, I know what that's. I don't know. Like, I've been talking about Jon Jones.
I know.
I was happy to talk about Jon Jones to get the fight, and now the fight's not there. I'm just like, let's just move on.
After years of hype, back and forth callouts, and rising anticipation, the chapter between Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones has come to an unexpected end, without a single punch thrown. Jon Jones quietly stepped away from the sport. No flashy farewell, just a low-key announcement via Dana White at a routine press conference now. As the dust begins to settle, Tom Aspinall sits down with Ariel Helwani in Las Vegas, not just as another interview guest, but as the man now carrying the heavyweight crown. It's the first time he's opened up this much since the news dropped, and his demeanor says it all. Composed, determined, and ready to move forward. There's no more waiting around. There's no more hoping for a showdown that was never truly on the table. Regardless of how it happened, Tom stands as the UFC heavyweight champion. And perhaps the most telling part of this entire story is what Jon didn't say, because, in the end, Tom didn't need to beat Jones in the cage. His rise, his presence, and his momentum were enough to close that chapter for good.
See, for me, the second that I won the interim title, I think that a lot of people looked at me a little bit different to a regular interim champion, in my opinion.
You should have been the undisputed champion that night.
Yeah, that's what I think, just because of the politics around it and the way that, things happened. But for me, I was always a champion anyway, interim or not, in my opinion, in my own view. But I would have liked to have taken it from the other champion, as in a fight. That would have been nice. But I guess it's worked out pretty good anyway, I guess.
The conversation kicked off with Jon Jones. Ariel brought up that moment from last Saturday when Dana White, at press conference, casually announced Jones' retirement. At that exact time, Tom Aspinall was already in bed. He had just returned from a relaxed dinner with his wife and some friends, winding down for the night when his phone suddenly lit up. It was his media rep, calling him past midnight. But this wasn't some grand moment. No dramatic celebration, no surprise announcement. Just a simple message. Congrats. You're the champ now. We'll talk details next week. No ceremonial handoff, no official presentation, just a quiet phone call. And the title was his.
Where is Tom Aspinall when this announcement is made?
I was in bed getting ready to sleep.
So you're awake?
I was usually, so it was around about midnight-ish. Usually I wouldn't be awake. I'm usually asleep before then. That particular day, I had been for a meal with my wife and some friends. We got in a little bit late, not too late, like 10, 11. So I was just like took a shower, was ready to sleep, got in bed. My phone started ringing. I'm like, it was actually my media guy, Charlie, who called me. And I'm like, why is Charlie calling me at like midnight? What the hell's going on? So I answered it and I was like, what's up? Like, I didn't even like say hello. By the way, if you front, maybe this will cross up, like, you don't really greet someone in the UK by saying what's up. What's up is more like a question of, is everything okay?
Oh, really?
Like in the US, people say, oh, what's up?
Yeah, what's up? Yeah.
We don't really use that in the UK.
Okay.
What's up means like what's wrong? So I answered it and was like, what's wrong? What's up?
Yeah.
And he's like, Dana's just announced that you're the champion. I was like, what? No way. Anyway, we had a little chat, put the phone down. Hunter Campbell called me, literally as I put the phone down. And as he called, all I could hear was the press conference like going on in the background, like with Dana. And originally I thought that he'd like pocket dialed me by accident, because I was like, hello? Like, it was loud. Like he was in the same room as Dana. And he just said, look, just let you know, we've announced that you're the champion. Congratulations. We'll talk more next week. Bye.
That was it.
Tom admits the whole situation brought more relief than excitement. While fans and pundits often portrayed him as chasing Jon Jones for clout or a big paycheck, Tom sets the record straight. For him, it was never about fame, and it definitely wasn't about the money. His focus was always on the title, on being recognized as the best heavyweight in the world. That's what fueled him in training day after day, not the spectacle, but the standard. What really frustrated him wasn't Jon walking away. It was the time he lost sitting on the sidelines, unable to compete. He's not here to be an influencer or a talking head. He's here to fight. That's all he ever wanted to do.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
What is your reaction?
I mean, I was relieved. I was relieved that this is all over, because I know you've backed me up on this a lot, and I appreciate it. I was never, ever just chasing Jon Jones. And there was a lot of talk from people online and stuff, like there was a lot of comparisons to Chandler chasing McGregor. Chandler was chasing McGregor because he wanted a big fight and he wanted some money. Basically, that's what's happening there. I didn't care about a big fight or money. I cared about the heavyweight title. That's all I've ever been bothered about, is recognition for being the best heavyweight walking around on planet Earth. That's all I ever wanted to do. So originally, I'm just like relieved that I can actually fight again. I think a lot of people don't understand that. Look, I do some stuff in the media. I've got a YouTube channel. I do stuff across social media. I've got great sponsors and everything. Like, I do stuff in the media, obviously.
Ariel dug into how the whole announcement went down, how it felt underwhelming for a moment that should have carried more weight. This wasn't like the title handovers we saw with legends like Jose Aldo or Ronda Rousey. There was no ceremony, no spotlight, just a passing mention during a routine press conference. Tom understands. He admits the UFC could have handled it with a bit more class. Sure, a proper moment of recognition would have been nice, but he's not dwelling on it. At the end of the day, Tom's not chasing applause, he's chasing legacy. The only validation that truly matters to him will be earned inside the octagon.
Some sort of like appreciation of the pomp and circumstance that it's like,
yeah. I see where you're coming from. It isn't great, in all honesty, but for me, in like 3 months when I fight, or whenever I fight, that's all going to be forgotten about anyway.
Sure.
Like the accolade is still there that I'm the heavyweight champion. I can still fight somebody. So that was my focus. Yeah, it would have been definitely nice to get my flowers a little bit more, but I can do that in the octagon anyway. Me personally, I'm not too bothered. I can see where like yourself and other people are coming from. Like, that's a bit of a shitty way to do it.
Your father as well.
Yeah, my dad was the same.
He called it pathetic.
Yeah. And I can see where you guys are coming from, but for me personally, I'm just like...
Even so, context matters. As Ariel points out, Tom now holds a rare distinction. He's the one man Jon Jones never stepped in the cage with. Tom doesn't wear that like a trophy, but he's fully aware of what it means. His presence may have changed the equation. If he were older, slower, or past his prime, maybe Jon sticks around. But that's not who Tom is. He's in his prime, young, dangerous, sharpened by momentum and skill. And that might have been enough to make even a legend think twice. Jon Jones chose to walk away, and in doing so, left the throne to Tom Aspinall.
This has benefited you, even though it's been frustrating. You can now sit here and say, I believe you retired Jon Jones. You could sit here and say, I retired Jon Jones. And you did say last summer,
yeah, I did.
He will never fight me, and he will choose to retire instead of fighting me. So that is a feather in your cap.
Again, I see what you mean, but that's like ego talking.
Your presence made one of the greatest fighters of all time say, I'm not fighting anymore.
It is.
If you were a 42-year-old former champion who was sitting there, he probably is fighting.
Yeah, I think so.
In fact, he was campaigning to fight Francis Ngannou not that long ago.
Or Alex.
Yeah. So that's a feather.
It's a compliment.
Yes.
It's a
compliment. Are you taking it as such?
I guess so, yeah. But again, that's like my ego talking. So I'm like, whatever. I'm like, done with that now, and I'm ready.
Still, Tom isn't one to dwell on what-ifs. It's clear he's grown tired of the Jon Jones conversation. He only entertained it when there was still a chance they'd meet in the cage. Now that the fight's off the table, so is the topic. When did he realize it was truly over? A few weeks. Back not from any official announcement, but from the quiet murmurings within the MMA community. It's a small world, and word travels fast. Tom had friends training in Thailand, not far from where Jon was supposedly preparing. But from what they saw and what they didn't, Jon wasn't in camp. He wasn't gearing up for war. He was just there, going through the motions.
Everybody seemed to think that Jon was like playing this game of, let's make Tom not think I'm giving him the fight, and then I'm just going to spring it on him. But the MMA community at the highest level is a pretty small world, and I know people who've been out in Thailand at similar times to that he was there. I know people who are around his circle, and I know that from the behaviour that he's doing outside the octagon, that he's not going to fight anytime soon.
Back in March, when Tom sat down with UFC executives in London, he truly believed the Jon Jones fight was finally taking shape. They told him to stay ready, and that's exactly what he did. No holidays, no time off. Just focused training, recovery, and staying fight ready. For 10 straight months, he held up his end of the bargain. Fully committed and locked in. So even if the end result wasn't the showdown he'd envisioned, at least he can say one thing with certainty. He was ready. Always.
Yeah, and the UFC always... See, I honestly think I've got to be one of the easiest people for the UFC to ever work with. Because, and that's not me like blowing my own trumpet. Everything they tell me I do. I never do anything like... They just told me for a year, be ready, stay fit, stay in shape, be ready for a date, be ready for a contract. And that's what I've done for the last year. I've not done nothing else. I've took like no vacations. I'm not taking no days off. I'm looking after my diet. I'm doing my recovery. I'm doing the sparring. I'm doing the strength and conditioning. I'm learning new techniques. I'm doing everything that a professional fighter at the elite level should be doing to get ready for a fight. So that's all I've done for like the last 10 months or whatever it's been. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange situation, to be honest, but I'm so glad now that it's just done and I can move on.
And I appreciate that, and that's probably your cue to...
And yet, even now, Jon is still posting, still tweeting about it, still dropping hints about what might have been. But as far as Tom's concerned, it's over. Whatever. Went on behind closed doors, be it politics, negotiations, or delays, it was out of his hands. He's not placing blame, not on Jon, not on the UFC. All he knows is this. They told him to be ready, and he was. They asked him to wait, and he did. And now they've called his name. That's what matters.
I think you've got to be able to see Jon's point of view. I don't know, it's difficult to say because I don't know anybody else's business, and I don't claim to know anybody else's business. It's just like, I know what they told me. What the UFC are doing and what Jon's doing is literally nothing to do with me. They told me to be ready. I was ready. They told me I've got this much time. I was preparing myself for that, and that's literally all I can do. The money and all that stuff, and that's got nothing to do with me. So I don't really.
And I know you hate talking about this stuff. And
yeah, I don't know who's to blame, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's done.
By the end, Tom doesn't take shots at Jon directly. But when Ariel brings up Jon's history with performance-enhancing drugs, Tom's stance becomes crystal clear. He doesn't see PED use as just bending the rules, it's something far worse. If you're a sprinter and you cheat, you're gaining an edge. But in MMA, where the aim is to cause physical harm, cheating isn't just unethicalized dangerous. In Tom's eyes, it's cowardly. And anyone who chooses that path shouldn't be allowed back in the cage. Period. That viewpoint leads into something more personal: how Tom defines greatness. Ariel raises the question, should someone with failed drug tests even be part of the GOAT conversation? Tom doesn't hesitate. For him, the greatest of all time is Georges St-Pierre, not just because of the championships or accolades, but because of how he carried himself. Two-division champion, who walked away clean, no scandals. No failed tests, no excuses. Tom values that kind of integrity. In a sport where legacies can be stained overnight, he believes true greatness isn't just about what you do inside the cage, but how you conduct yourself outside of it.
GSP is my greatest of all time. It goes without saying. Like, he has done everything. Like you say, two division champion. Also relinquished both of his losses. Zero PED stuff. And I think, I'm not getting at Jon here, I'm getting at anyone who's failed a PED test. So this is my view on PEDs personally. If you're a sprinter, for example, you do 100 meters and you take PEDs and you win a race, you become faster than people who are not taking PEDs from that. That's okay. You're a cheat, you've won, they'll take your title off you or whatever.
Tom draws a hard line when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs. In his eyes, this isn't the same as cheating in a sprint, where the worst outcome is a stripped medal and a tarnished record. In MMA, the consequences are far more severe. This is a sport where every punch, every kick, carries the risk of lasting damage. Using Pesier isn't just breaking the rules, it's putting someone's health, even their future, at risk. To Tom, it's not just cheating. It's reckless, it's dangerous, and it's unforgivable. He believes anyone who crosses that line shouldn't get a second chance. No suspensions, no comebacks, just a permanent ban. Because in a sport where the stakes are this high, there's zero room for shortcuts that could leave someone else with life-changing consequences.
Fine. If your job is to hurt another person, physically hurt another person, which could potentially redirect the rest of their life post-fighting, you're an absolute piece of shit and you should never be.
At this point in the interview, the topic shifts, but you can still feel the weight of the past year hanging over Tom. He's calm, collected, but beneath the surface, the emotional toll is clear. For months, he lived in limbo wearing the interim belt, but always being told to wait for the real title. All the while, he was asked to stay quiet, stay patient, and stay professional. And he did. He held the line. He trained. He waited. Respected the process. Now, at last, he gets to move forward, but the experience left a mark. There's no bitterness in his voice, but there is a noticeable change. A quiet resolve, a deeper focus. You can tell he's come through something, and he's not the same as he was before.
It's difficult because for me, it's really, really simple. Like you said, people, they always want to ask me about Jon Jones and stuff. And this very interview right now will be the last time I speak about it. I'm never going to speak to it.
You're done.
Again. I'm done with it. Anybody who asks me moving forward will get completely shut down about it. I'm not going to speak about it again.
Okay.
But like from here, like I just want to be done with it. I just want to move on. But I did want to fight him for it. I think that would have been the right thing to do.
How do you think it would have gone? Could I ask?
Me and Jon?
Yeah.
I'm the ultimate MMA nerd. I love MMA. I absolutely love MMA. I live and breathe for MMA. I've trained since I was 10 years old, 32 years old. Everything that I do in my life is centered around me being the best version of myself that I can be. Other things aside, the title, who Jon is, all the hype around it, all the money and all that kind of stuff.
And maybe that's what makes this whole story feel unfinished even though. Technically it's over. Tom Aspinall never got the fight he chased. He didn't get the spotlight moment, the headline announcement, or the chance to settle it in the cage. But what he did get was something just as powerful proof that he was too big of a threat. That his skill, his momentum, and his presence were enough to shift the course of history. He didn't retire Jon Jones with a knockout. He retired him with pressure, with presence alone.
I don't know, like I've been talking about Jon Jones.
I know.
I was happy to talk about Jon Jones to get the fight. And now the fight's not there. I'm just like, let's just move on.
I get it. Now, when did you start to believe it wasn't happening?
Few weeks ago, maybe. When everybody seemed to think that Jon was like playing this game of let's make Tom not think I'm giving him the fight, and then I'm just going to spring it on him. But the MMA community at the highest level is a pretty small world, and I know people who've been out in Thailand, at similar times that he was there. I know people who are around his circle, and I know that from the behavior that he's doing outside the octagon.
What's your take on how it all played out? Did Tom Aspinall get the respect he deserved? Or was he robbed of his moment?